Today, we're diving into something that shapes, well, pretty much every relationship you have, from your best friend to the person you just met at work. It's this fascinating concept called the social elastic tie. So, let's just jump right in with a big question. Do you think your relationships are stronger than the world around them? I mean, we all like to believe our bonds are these personal, protected things, right? Kind of existing in their own little bubble. But what if they're not? What if they're constantly being pulled and stretched by these huge invisible forces all around us? Well, it's those invisible forces that we're really going to impact today. So let's get right to it. What is a social elastic tie? Okay, here's the best way to think about it. Picture every single one of your connections with your family, your friends, coworkers, as an elastic band. It's strong, it's flexible, but, and this is the important part, if you stretch it too far, it's gonna snap. And here's the more academic take on it, coming from researcher M. Battle Fisher. They define a social elastic tie as a connection between two people that is affected by social stressors and, the environment they're in. See, the key here is that it's not just about the two people. It's about those two people in the context of the world. So you might be thinking, okay, how is this different from just, a strong friendship? And that's a great question. A strong tie is just that direct, personal bond. But a social elastic tie, well, that brings in this invisible third party to the relationship, all that societal pressure, all those outside influences. It's the whole picture, not just part of it. All right, so we've got the basic idea down. Now let's talk about the forces that are actually doing the stretching. The research has a great name for this: the system's invisible hand. These are all those pressures that are constantly shaping our connections without us even realizing it. And this quote from Doan, man, it gets right to the heart of the matter. It says that when our systems, our institutions, push people to the margins, it directly impacts their health. And of course, that can create this awful feedback loop where poor health just pushes you even further out. Now, here's a really crucial distinction that Battle Fisher makes. This system itself doesn't have, bad intentions. It's not out to get anyone. The best way to picture it is like a river. A river just flows, right? That's its only job. But we're the ones who build the dams and the channels, often based on our own biases. And because of that, the river ends up flowing in ways that help some people and hurt others. So the inequality, that actually comes from us. Okay, so if the system isn't trying to create inequality, then how in the world does it keep growing? Well, the research points to 4 pretty specific ways this happens. 4 factors that are quietly stretching our social ties. Yeah, so a couple of sociologists, DiMaggio and Garip, they really dug into this, and they identified 4 key mechanisms that amplify social inequality. So here they are. First, you have the impact of just individual differences. The system can take a small difference between people and just blow it up into a huge gap. Second, there's the adoption of beneficial practices. Think about things like having access to great tutors or a powerful career mentor. That's not something everyone gets, right? Third, there are those big external pressures that hit us all, like a bad economy. And finally, and this one is huge, is the effect of what they call homogeneous networks. Basically, we tend to stick with people who are just like us. We live in our own little bubbles. And each one of these things, in its own way, puts a different kind of strain on those elastic ties. So you've got the elastic tie. You've got all this constant pressure. The next logical question is, what happens when that tie is stretched to its absolute limit? Let's go back to that elastic band metaphor. All that constant systemic pressure we just talked about, from those 4 factors and a whole lot more, it puts every single one of our social ties under this massive, nonstop strain. They are literally always being stretched. And the risk here is, well, it's pretty simple and stark. As Battle Fisher puts it, the social elastic tie can stretch or it can break. And we have to remember, this isn't just a theoretical idea. We're talking about real friendships, real families, real communities that are struggling under all this weight. And when one of those ties breaks, it's never just about 2 people. Think of it like a rope. When one strand snaps, the whole rope gets weaker. It's the same idea here. A broken connection weakens the entire social network. It undermines the health of the whole community. The damage it cascades outwards. I know, this all sounds pretty heavy, right? It's a sobering picture for sure. So for this last part, let's get to the most important question of all. Why does this matter? What is the real takeaway here? But look, the point of all this is not to be a downer. It's about being aware. Because once you can actually see these invisible forces, you can start to do something about them. You can find ways to reduce your exposure to stress, and maybe even more importantly, you can learn how to really leverage your connections for support. The idea is to make those ties stronger because of the strain, not just in spite of it. And really, if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's this. Health inequity is a huge systemic issue. It's vast, but its impact, that's incredibly personal. And our relationships, our social elastic ties, they're right there on the front lines, taking the hit day after day. So, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. If we know that our systems are basically designed in a way that stretches our social ties, then the real question isn't if they'll be stretched, but how do we build them to bounce back? How do we build real resilience, not just in ourselves as individuals, but in the very connections that hold our communities together?